Welcome back to another week of the Stitch Journal. And flowers. The flowers are starting to be put on, and I don't want anybody to feel they can't do it, because although especially the dandelions, they might look complicated, but they really aren't. So I hope you just follow along as I break it down into the steps you need, just so that you can get something this lovely as well. And there will be a stitch tutorial on Friday about this exact flower. But in the meantime, I hope you just see how easy it is to just put something like that onto the foreground and make yourself something beautiful too. So I'll see you at the end. Enjoy. So we've come to the foreground flowers here. I have started to make some marks, but really I think it's a bit more freeform than that. I've just sort of made curving marks all over. Just, I don't know. You don't have to do anything. Just do them freehand. What I have got here are some bits of felted skirt. So you could use felt or literally anything that's green if you're wanting to do green. And I'm going to be cutting out just some nice tapering shapes to be leaves, because before I do much else I want the background to be layered up a bit. And so I'm just taking my scraps. There's not really any particular shape going here. I'm just cutting shapes off of whatever size I can get, and somehow they'll all go all right. These bits are off some green denim from my husband's trousers, and these little bits are actually from a piece of fabric that I'd intensed up when I was doing the flower book. So they're actually going to be ironed on. These are going to be stitched on. But I thought I'd just show you that I think I'm going to do a little bit of foreground right at the bottom eventually. And so I'm not necessarily taking these right down to the bottom. And I'm just going to stitch them on with very simply. I'm just going to, it's easier if you just cut up a few and then spend a few minutes just arranging things until you see what you think you like. And so it sort of gets easier if you do it in groups. I've got some thread in my needle already, and it's just this vintage crochet cotton, just fine crochet cotton. So I've got a needle with a sharp point and a small eye. I'm not bothering with the hoop at the moment. I'm not bothering pinning. I'm going to start at the bottom, and for this one I'm just going to move all that off. Once I've got it in my head, I can move everything off. I'm just going to lay that in, and if it moves and makes a funny position, it's not going to bother me. It's going to look even better. So I think I'm just going to running stitch this up and down, which in the end is a bit easier than doing back stitch. So you can running stitch right the way up the middle line. And then I'll just turn it round so I'm holding it the right way around for my leftiness. And then nothing wrong with leaving it like that. You can just leave it with the running stitch, but I'm going to come back down it and fill in the gaps. And so I suppose that might be called double running stitch, because you're actually just running stitches twice. And what it means is I can end up at the bottom ready to start the next leaf, which is quite nice. It means no finishing off all the time. So I'm looking forward to doing some flowers on here with some new stitches. I think you're ready for some complicated ones maybe. But don't worry about them. Those of you who've been starting embroidery from the beginning, everything is just stages, and I think you'll enjoy the new stitches. And I'll put my next one on and just put it wherever it wants to lie. I'll let the fabric decide where it wants to go. It wants to go like that, look, so I'm going to do it like that. And I think I'll put all of these on with double running stitch. It's really curling round now actually, so let's just go with the flow. And back down again. Just make sure I've got the point in. Especially when it's this wool, if I don't stitch the point in, it's likely to come off. So it's important that any things that you think are delicate get stitched down. Okay, last one. I shall start this one here. And I will get all of these on and iron them. And then I'll come back for the next bit. I've ironed those bits down and I don't actually feel the need to put any stitching on them because there'll be more stitching over the top which is going to hold them down. I don't feel I want to go and stitch any ribs or anything. But on these three here I'm using just a bit of couching, but I'm doing it in a different way, so I'm only using the same thread. So I've come up at the bottom of this leaf here. I'm using a variegated pearl cotton. It doesn't matter, you don't have to use variegated. I'm going to take one big stitch right up to the top of the leaf. Now it's important here, especially if you're in the hand, not to pull it too tight. But I'm immediately going to come down about 1/4 of an inch from the tip and I'm just going to couch over it. And it means that you're stitching but you're not having to deal with a second thread. You're just couching down its own thing. And it's quite a nice easy way to get a bit of couching down the middle of the leaf. If you have a variegated thread, as the colours change it'll be lovely, but I don't think I'm going to get to the colour change today. Not on this one anyway. So it's all being a bit blue, but that's all fine. So I've couched right down to the bottom. Again, it saves me finishing it off because I've gone up to the top and worked my way back down. I'll get my third leaf I'm going to put over here. And I've just cut these in a wider shape. Nothing difficult at all, just cut any leaf shape that you fancy. I've come up through the bottom of the leaf, put my leaf where I want it to be, put it there, or right down at the tip. And then 1/4 of an inch down from the top and work my way back down with a couching stitch over that mid-rib. And you can put in as many as you like. I'm putting in a stitch every 1/4 inch. You could just as easily come down these with fly stitch. That would be really nice. Starting at the top, you could put a fly stitch in and you'll get all the leaf veins, but that's not bothering me today. I may put something like that in further, more in the foreground, but for these ones I'm just going to be happy to get them onto the page and get their mid-ribs in. And so because I've actually got thread left in my needle, and I have got a colour change thread on, I'm just going to lay some straight stitches in, just as grass. I'm not going to bother about, I'm just going to bring my needle up wherever it wants to come, take it down into the leaves and just start the process of layering this piece in. I'm going to go over the top of what I've already got. And I'm not coming down at the bottom, I'm just going to go onwards every time. And I'll go down over that one as well. That's fine. And just lay the stitches wherever you feel a stitch needs to be. And it just means I've been able to use the thread up and I've got something else happening without necessarily having to finish my thread off every time. So the first of the flowers that I want to put in are representations of cow parsley, which is one of my most favourite wildflowers. And I'm going to have big stalks up here. And what I've already done, I've just used, well, sometimes I've used the blue disappearing pen, but I've also used the white one that I recently was using on my sashiko. And all I've done is just confidently done a stalk up. Don't, like, the quicker you do it, the better line you'll get. And it's just to give myself an idea of where I want them to go. And then to do the tops, I don't know whether you can see, I just decided where the top was, and then I've just done curving lines out, just quick. It doesn't have to, you don't have to think about it. It's a flower. It won't all be symmetrical. You just do whatever. And then that's it. And then they're ready to embroider. And I'm going to start right from the top. And I'm going to get the hold of one of these lines here. Oh, and what I've got in my needle is this vintage crochet cotton. Again, it's quite a fine cotton, what I'd call a mid-green. I'm going to start at the end of one of my lines with a little fly stitch. So I'm going down and coming up on the up on the line and making a little stitch down. And then I'm actually going to do a split stitch. You could back stitch this, you could running stitch this. In fact, I might do some running stitch on them, but I'm just going to split each stitch as I come down, and I'm going to work my way to where I've identified the middle. The stitches are quite small because you want to follow the curve, and the smaller your stitches are going to be, the easier that curve will be to follow. It can be done in the hoop or in the hand, it's fine. I'm doing it in the hand and there's nothing wrong. There's going to be not easier or more hard either way, it's just a preference. So I'm following that curved line right down to where I just put a little bit of a blob to identify the middle of the flower. Oops, I've got a knot. There we go. And there, I'm going to say that's the middle. And all I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back out, up another one of the curved lines. And I'll just do split stitch the other way up. In fact, I'll do some with each stitch so you can see the difference. And then you can decide for yourselves which you like. Neither one is particularly better than another, it's just different. Pleased to say we had dry weather today. The rain at last has stopped. And it got a bit warmer. Hooray! I think the UK is just absolutely sick of the rain. Okay, I've gone up to the top, so I shall just do the little fly stitch right at the top. Like that. And now I'll choose a different one. I'll come over here, choose a different one. I can do the little fly stitch a bit flatter. They don't all have to be at the same angle. In fact, one leg can be longer than another. It can be totally freeform. Like that. I'll take that down a bit longer this time. And let's do just a little dotted running stitch here. I'll not leave much in the middle. back out for another one. I'll use the same bit of a running stitch. I am just leaving about a millimetre gap here. Quite like that little running stitch actually. Going to carry on with it. In fact, I can do it that way, but I might not get such a small gap. Oh yes, I can. As long as they all head back to the middle. You can see how it's building up. I'm going to put a few more in here. I've got another half drawn out flower there. I think I'll probably put 3 on. I might do a very tall one. I'll see how I feel about it. Now I've actually come down the stem a bit because I realised the green on green wasn't that easy to see. So I've started to come down the stem, and now I'm going to finish it off and show you that I'm actually doing reverse chain stitch, which is really easy, and I think a lot of people find it easier than forward chain stitch. So I've started here. I just laid the rest of my little stems in there and got a few straight stitches to gather them all together, and then I came down by 1/4 of an inch and hooked my first chain round. I have to go and see Misty. I'm back. Poor Misty, she struggles to walk up the stairs now. She always shouts for someone to help her. Anyway, she's upstairs where she likes to be. Okay, so reverse chain stitch. I'm holding it up, I hope you can see it. There's my chain stitch there. And come down whatever length you want. I'm actually doing them quite big comparison to the stem that I'm doing. And you pick up the legs of the chain before on your needle. You're just going through, you're not going through the fabric at all. You pull through. And when you bring that down, you can see that you're going to make a chain. So you go down exactly where your thread came out before, and you make a little stitch backwards. And I'm doing about, well, 1/4 of an inch probably, maybe a bit less than 1/4 of an inch. And when you pull down, you've made your chain, which on mine it's got twisted somehow. Let me just pull that back a bit. Yes, I want them to lie nice and straight. There, okay. And so you set up straight away for doing the next chain. Go through the legs of the one you've just made, pull down, back in where you started from, and a little backward stitch. And it's really easy to work down a line. And I don't know whether you can see, but my little blue line there is what I put in to just keep myself going straight. You just carry on, pull that up and make sure you can see it. Just carry on making your little stitch backwards, and your chain stitch will still look like it's been made forwards. So this is a reverse chain. We have done that before. Can't think which page. Might have been the bracket fungus. Can't quite remember. Take that through to the back. Okay, so I've got one nice cow parsley stem, and I'm going to put another flower on here, and I was going to do 3. I actually might just do the 2 flowers, so I'm going to do that and then I'll be back to do the flowers. And so I have got 3 strands of this white, maybe off-white stranded cotton just out of my box, and I'm going to do French knots. But instead of just doing normal French knots, which, as you know, you need to try and keep tight and make them at the fabric and all of that malarkey, as it were. So pulling the knot to the fabric and pulling through to make a perfect French knot. I'm actually going a bit off-piste, and I'm going to make some really loose French knots because I think it's going to add to what I'm making. And to make a loose French knot, just going to go around 3 times the same. I'm going to put my needle in, and I'm just going to let it be. and I'm not even going to pull it very much. I'm just going to let it be and see what happens. I know, break the rules, and I'm going to get a really loose French knot. But I'm actually, that's what I'm after. I'm after something a bit more, you know, loose. That's the point. So I'm going to wander back and forward across the top of this cow parsley. And sometimes I'll do something properly and pull the knot to the fabric, hold it and pull it through and let go right at the end. And sometimes I'm just going to do one willy-nilly, haphazard, and every other word for not properly that you can find. I'm just going to let go and I'm going to see what happens. And there we are, another loosey-goosey one. Just turn upside down. I think I can hold it and show you better. Nice, tight, perfectly made, lovely. And the next one, and I'm not joining them onto the ends of the little stalks, they can just float about wherever they like, but I'm going to aim for a flat head. Next one, 1, 2, 3, get my needle in, and then I'm just going to let go and let it do what it wants. I'm going to get a depth of the embroidery for that. It's going to make some look further away and some look nearer. So I'm just going to alternate about. I'm going to wander around here and then I'll wander back again. I'll have a wander over and see whether I've got enough, and then I'll take a look and then I'll wander back again. So here's another proper French knot, and I think I'll go in there and I'll make a freeform one. But I'm still doing the 3 wraps. I'm just going to put my needle in, let go of the whole thing, and I don't know, can you see how nice that's making it? And to me, that's just as perfect a French knot as that one, because it's perfect for what I'm wanting it for. If I wanted something absolutely tight and perfectly formed in the traditional French knot sense, then here we go, there it is. But this is a flower, and the flower can have anything it likes, or it can have anything I'm happy to have. Oh, that's a bonny one. When I turn this round, I'll finish the end of this bit of thread and I'll turn it round, and you'll see what a difference. Alternating the really perfectly made ones with the really loose ones, and hopefully you'll see what I mean about it being able to add depth to your embroidery. So obviously I've got it all upside down at the minute. Well, there you go. So that's just one pass along the top of that flower. And I think the little tight ones and the little loose ones are combining to make something nicer than if I'd done them all this tight, tiny thing. I'm actually going to do something different on this flower to show you a different way of doing the same sort of thing. And it doesn't matter to me that I'll have different stitches on here and different stitches on there. I'm perfectly fine with that, but you can choose which ones you want to do, because I think there's another nice way of putting the cow parsley flowers in that isn't French knots. So I'm going to put my thread back in. I'm going to get my other piece of, this is the other part of my 3 strands. And I'm going to come, I think I definitely want more here, so I'm going to come back along and I'll work from this side again, from this side back over, and do exactly what I've just been showing you. Combination of loose and tight. And it's sort of nice to wander around back and forward because at any time you can then just stop and say you've done enough. Whereas if you start and put them all in here, you sort of, even if you get fed up of doing them, or you think you've done too much, you either have to carry on or you have to take some out. Whereas if you just wander back and forwards, at any point it's going to be looking perfect to you, and at that point you can just stop. I've finished this cow parsley, and all I've done extra to what you'll have seen, apart from finishing the white thread, is I then got a cream, and I've used the same 3 strands in my needle, and I've gone through the bottom with some tight French knots. I haven't done any of the loose ones, just the tight ones, and I've kept them all to the underneath, sort of looking a bit like buds, or the unopened, or the flowers that are a bit in the shade. So I haven't put any up on the top at all, and I think it's added quite a nice bit of variation. And so here I am on the second flower, and I actually thought little crosses would work really well, and so I've started to put them in, and I think they're looking really delicate. So these are just tiny little crosses. It doesn't really matter what angle you end up doing them on. I'm not even bothering whether they get attached to a stalk or not, because they're just floating around. They're about, I don't know, less than 1/4 of an inch in length. And I'm just going to wander around on this. In fact, I can do it in one. I can do it like that, if you prefer to work like that. As long as they're a proper cross, that's the main thing. So wherever your first line is, make sure you're going at right angles and you're doing an actual proper cross. And I think they look really nice. I just thought it might have a different effect. And as I say, it doesn't bother me that the 2 flowers are going to end up with different stitches on them. It all helps just to show what a choice of stitch is going to give a different effect. So I've wandered across the top of there. That's looking very delicate. I'm going to wander back this way, and then I'll do the same thing of taking that cream thread, and I'll put some cream flowers underneath in just the same way. And as I come back, I'm not even going to bother if I over stitch some of the other flowers I've already got on. I don't want them all lined up necessarily. I'll just keep putting them through this flower head and keep checking to see how it looks. I do love cow parsley. They're one of my absolute favourite flowers. I have them growing at the top of the garden. As long as they're not coming up through my roses or something, they can just do what they like. Just think they're really, really, really elegant and pretty. Don't have a good scent. You can't really bring them into the house. They can smell a bit funny. Let's have a look. Well, as you can see, it's quite a different effect. And I love this. This is quite delicate. Maybe just because I haven't done enough passes along it yet. So I'm going to do another pass with another length of thread in the white, and then I'll do the same as I've done here, and I'll take the cream underneath, and then we'll see what it looks like. So I'm excited to get on to the next flower because it's a good one. There's my 2 different cow parsley flowers. I wonder which one you think looks the nicest. I think they both look pretty. This seems a little bit more delicate, but I really like the French knots too. So I suppose it just depends what you like to do. If you like to do little crosses, that'll work. If you like to do French knots, try the loose ones. That'll work also. I have gone through the bottom with the cream thread in just the same way. I do think it makes a difference. But anyway, on to the flower of the week really, which is going to be a dandelion. Now, I made a dandelion in my original stitch book way from last year, and it's the one thing that people wanted to know how to make, and so this is what I'm doing. I'll be making this dandelion, albeit on a smaller scale. The main part of the dandelion will be this week's stitch tutorial on Friday. I'll do it in a larger scale so that it's more clear what I'm doing, because on this page obviously I need to do it in a smaller part. I've actually laid the stems in already, and all I've done for those stems is running stitch, then I've whipped it, and then I whipped it back again, so it's gone twice through the running stitches. You know, if you would normally whip your running stitch up, but instead of finishing I turned around and whipped it back down again, and it makes sort of a little plaited thick stem. So that's what they are. So I'll be using the same green, and I'm using the yellow. So to start off, I need to just have some yellow that's going to be the petals. Now I'm sort of going to need quite a bit. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll try 12. I take them off my fingers, keep it together, and I'm just going to cut the thread. That's the basis of the dandelion, and I'm now going to get some of this thread in my needle, and I think I'm going to use 3 strands, but that's really because I need to be able to show it up to you. So I'm going to explain the process as I go along, and if you feel you can't see it clearly enough, wait till Friday and then you will see it. So there's my little hank of thread. I'll do this one here at the beginning, so I'm going to come up about right on the end of my stem, and I've got my 3 strands of embroidery cotton in the needle, and I am just going to lay them in and stitch around it. Take my needle back down, just take a little stitch. I'm going to make sure they're right in the middle where they get caught down, like that. I'll do another one. So they're nice and tightly attached to my material. Take a stitch to the side so that I'm a little way up the threads. Now I'll lay them in. Doesn't matter that you can see that, that's all going to be covered. And then I'm going to wrap that over and take a stitch across. But I don't want it to be too wide, so I'm going to look on my material, and I'm just taking maybe over 1/4 of an inch. But I'll just hold my threads in, and then I'll pull that tight, and there we're starting to get what I need to get. So I'll come back up to the front again, back up to the side of nearest to me, and I'm going to just put a few stitches that'll secure that dandelion onto there, like that. And if I come back up, I'm going to come back up on the right hand side, and that's just because I'm left-handed, so you'll need to come up on the other side, and you'll need to come up here if you're right-handed. So now I'm going to cover all of this calyx here with detached blanket stitch, and it's really nice to do because you're not going through fabric at all, so it just works really well. But you need to just see what I'm doing, so I'm going to hold it up as much as I can and hope I'm in focus. So I've come up on the right hand side because I'm working towards myself being left-handed, and I'm just going to go through where I've just put in that thread, and I'm going to make a blanket stitch. And I'm not necessarily pulling it very tight, but it's there. And then I'm just going to make another one. I want them quite close together because I don't eventually want to see the yellow underneath. I'll make another one. And another one. And it's called detached because it's not going through the fabric at all. but it's just a tiny little blanket stitch. And it's so nice, and you can do all sorts with it once you get the idea. So now that I've got over to this side, I'm just going to put one more in right on the edge there, and I'm going to take my needle down into the fabric to secure it, and I'm going to go under the back, and I'm actually going to come up on the other side again. So there's a few variations of this stitch where I could have gone back with a thread and worked back along, but I don't want to do that for today. So I've come back to the beginning, and I'm going to do the same. This time I just have to work through the blanket stitch itself, just as if you were stitching on cloth, but of course you're not stitching on cloth. So every single blanket stitch top, I'm just going to pick it up, make sure I'm coming through, and another blanket stitch gets formed. And it is that simple to make something really pretty and unusual for your stitch journal. I work my way back across, going to put the one in on the side. That's me done. You need to anchor it down because you don't want it just flapping around as a piece of stitching. Come back to the beginning again, and as it comes down to here, we'll need to shape it, and that all that means is that we'll be missing some stitches out. But I'll start here. So here I am, picking up that lying thread, making a blanket stitch, picking up the next one, making a blanket stitch, picking up the next one, making a blanket stitch, all the way across. Now I'd normally be looking through my magnifier to do this. It is quite small and my eyes are not as good as they used to be. Actually, I'm a bit small there, so I'm going to just put that back in the bottom, and I'm going to put a new length of thread in my needle. I'll just finish that off. You can see here we've got the stitches that are going behind the petal, behind the flower. So I'll just overcast into there and snip off. I'll come up again. So you can't really finish off in the middle of a row. You'd need to decide either to finish off before you come up for this one or at the end of this one, whichever, but you can't really finish in the middle. So next row. So I'm sort of gathering in a bit now. I'm going to miss that very first stitch out, and I'm going to hop along to the second stitch along because it'll help gather it in. And the next stitch, and you can start and pull the stitches tighter, which will also help gather it in. And this time I'm not going to put that edge stitch in that I've been doing. I'm just going to take my needle down, come back up at the bottom, and that'll stretch that round. And you see how I'm starting to get the curve? And I think this might be my last row. There's one. And you're not trying to pick up the yellow threads, you're only picking up the loop of the previous row's blanket stitch, nothing more. Now this time I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a look and see if I've done it. Now I can still see the tiniest bit of yellow there, so I'm just going to come up. I'm just going to make an extra stitch going along. It's not going to be the end of the world. And back down again. And really what I'd like to have here now are the calyxes. I think even 3 straight stitches is all it's going to need. I'll do one there, and I'll do one here, and I'll let this one go out a bit. Might as well do that while I've got the green in my needle. That's looking good. I'll finish the green off and then we'll finish the dandelion. Okay, so the next job is to cut through these loops. And I'm just going to do it really carefully by just getting every loop and making sure that they all get cut. A bit like the turkey work, cutting through the loops. And then the next thing is to take a needle with a blunt point if you can, or take the eye of a needle and just get all of these threads fluffed out and untwisted from where they're twisted in the ply. Just there's ones I haven't cut through. There's one there and there. Oh, that one's cut. So I'm just going to keep combing it through. And then when they're all fluffed up, you can sort of arrange them as you like. You have a really open, you can have a flower that's hardly open. If you did it like that and you did it with purple, you'd get a thistle. You'd just do a different bottom. But I want mine a bit more full out, so I'm just going to fluff it about. And then when I feel I've got it right, I can take my scissors and cut it to the size that I want it to be. So I definitely want it to be a bit smaller than that. It's not quite the right scale for the rest of my flowers, but it doesn't matter. And while I'm saying about scale of flowers and things, I was meaning to say that if you're a fan of Jennifer Cloustons and her beautiful fantasy flowers, they would work so well on top of here. So I know lots of you probably follow her or have her books or something, and I think I have the one that she had out years and years ago. When I was doing more crazy patchwork. I think that's the one I've got, the crazy patchwork book. Anyway, those types of flowers would fit well on here, but I try and do my own style is a bit more representative than fantasy, but I do love what she does. Anyway, there's the first of the dandelions. And I'm going to put another 2 on here, even though they're nearly the size of the cow parsleys. I'm not bothered at all. I'm just enjoying putting them in. I'll show you when I've got them done, and that will be Friday's stitch tutorial. I think that's probably quite a good time to finish for this week. I've put another 2 dandelions in. That one I'm keeping it a bit more like a half open one. This one I'm going to fluff down and let it look like a fully opened one. And this one here, I've done the detached blanket stitch further up. I've done it a long way further and I've cut the petals shorter, and so it looks like an emerging dandelion. And so by altering what you do here and how short you cut everything and what you do with it can make really different sort of effects. Well, that has come out really nicely and I'm super happy with it so far. The dandelions have been something I've been meaning to do for ages, because it was the one thing that I got so many messages about when I first posted my original stitch journal last year, and I've just never seemed to have had the chance to do it, and so this week was the week. That detached blanket stitch, it's just blanket stitch. It's just not done through the cloth, and the padding of the yellow of the dandelions just makes it easy. You'll just amaze yourself when you do it if you haven't done something like that before. It really isn't very hard, and I know that whether you're a seasoned stitcher that maybe hasn't done some stump work before, or whether you're a beginner who began in January or just lately and you're working your way up to these more complicated things. I say complicated, but it isn't. It's easy. You can do it. Just do it in the steps that I'm showing you and you'll get something that looks just as nice. You really, really will. So I hope you all have a go. Just say thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who's here. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Welcome old and new. I mean metaphorically, not as in physical age either. Just welcome everyone who's here, and thank you for all the thumbs ups and all the comments. And actually it's taken me a while to get through the comments because there's been so many, but I will. So if you haven't had a reply or a heart or something, I'm just because I haven't got there yet. But thank you so much, and I do enjoy reading them, and I do read everyone. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a like if you've liked it, and let me know how you're getting on. And I'll see you next time when you come to Marion's World. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.